Energy and Sustainable Conservation Update. One of my favorite reports, always at the Education Services Committee. It's just so wonderful to hear about the amazing strides we're making in conserving energy. Mr. Bethel, would you please report to us?
Thank you, Chairperson. Welcome, everyone, and good afternoon. In front of you is another Energy and Sustainable Conservation update, but this one covers the August to December 2021 period of time. And so this report kind of catches us up to our present state. I'll start with the construction activities that were completed in the fall. So all the boiler installations that we started in the summer were all completed and up and running in September. And those were the ones at Valemount Secondary, Mcbride Centennial Elementary, Morphy Elementary, and Van Bien Elementary. The project at Van Bien Elementary included boilers and 8 classroom ventilators, which was considered phase 1 of the project for the school. Phase 2 is underway as we speak with design and engineering. So the phase work plan will be hopefully completed this summer of 2022, and we'll be tendering that project in early spring. A number of tanks and what we call on-demand hot water tanks were installed to upgrade the existing domestic hot water systems at Van Bien, Morphy, and Mcbride Centennial Elementary Schools. These were done in conjunction with the boiler projects that were on site. And this will result in unlimited hot water availability and, of course, reduced energy savings to create that hot water. New projects for lighting. Heritage Elementary, the lighting upgraded was completed in late November, and that project included the replacement of 147 light fixtures with new LED dimmable flat panel units and associated occupancy sensors. We also did washroom areas, storage areas, ancillary areas in the newer portion of Heritage Elementary, and just sort of took all the old T8 lights that were in that area that were available and changed them out to LED. Art Highlands Elementary, that project was completed in December, and that included 184 fluorescent lighting fixture replacements with LED dimmable flat panel and occupancy sensors. Harwin Elementary, that lighting upgrade started at the Christmas break and is expected to be finished by middle of this month, 2 weeks from now. And the project included the replacement of approximately 400 fluorescent fixtures, and those will be replaced with LED dimmable fixtures and controlled again by occupancy sensors. The Mcbride Centennial lighting replacement started in early fall, and those lighting fixtures have been completed. And an update to this report, we went out, had an inspection this weekend, and I'm happy to say that all the dimmable occupancy sensors are all installed, lighting switches, and that project is now completed. There was a problem getting some of the supplies because of the chips that were in them, and that's all to do with what they call supply chain issues, which you hear a lot of these days. Mcbride Secondary and Valemount Secondary lighting replacement was started in early fall as well, in conjunction with the elementary school lighting that was completed. Again, 80% of the lighting is installed, and then supply chain issues were encountered. Delivery of the final lighting has occurred in late December, and we're expecting those final installations at both schools to occur in February. And I was told today that we're still expecting delivery on 100 fixtures for the Mcbride Secondary School, and those haven't arrived yet. And so we're still waiting. That school is 347 volt configuration, so that's why the lighting is not available off the shelf like you can for your home. It just takes longer to get that specific kind of lighting. We're also able to get furnace replacements at Hickson Elementary. There was 4 furnaces there. College Heights Secondary, there was a single furnace, and John McGinnis Resource Center, another single furnace, were completed over the summer. And those projects replaced a mid-efficient furnace systems with the high-efficient furnaces. And we also had to install new DDC control wiring and piping for the exhaust air intakes at the same time. The exhaust pipes for these new high-efficient furnaces you see in your new homes consist of 2-inch plastic piping. So very efficient design, uses all the energy that normally go up the smokestack and into the atmosphere, and uses it to actually heat your homes, or in this case, the school facility. We also completed an upgrade to the head-end hardware to our DDC direct digital control systems. And that was replaced at 17 schools in late December. And that pretty much finalized the changes to our old equipment and replaced some hardware that was over 20 years old. So we're happy to see that finally done. And we have pretty much replaced everything that needs to be replaced at this point. Reprogramming of 40+ building sites was undertaken in the late fall and December. And those changes will allow for more flexible scheduling, ventilation, and temperature changes in the schools. This was in conjunction with COVID requirements, and also to give us the ability to be a little bit more flexible in how we operate our schools. So some schools may operate at a warmer temperature or cooler temperature, depending on what is required at the different facilities, working with the principals and of course teachers, staff, and students. So hopefully that'll be a lot easier for staff to make those changes in one place rather than looking at all the different panels and so on and so forth. And some of that head-end hardware made that possible at the same time. I'd like to kind of stop there and just see if there's any questions on the actual construction infrastructure upgrades that we made changes to before I move on to the next parts of the report. Is there any questions?
Ron Palillo, Trustee Palillo, go ahead.
No real questions, but just I just want to say, I'm always amazed how much work is done by our staff in a little amount of time, and dealing with issues like COVID and supply chain, but the work gets done, and it gets done well and efficiently. And you think of what you highlighted, all that work has been done in the last 5 or 6 months. So kudos to everybody who is involved in that, because that is really, really, it's not the sexiest stuff, but it's very, very important. And I think it's just really indicative of the great work that happens every day by our staff. So I just wanted to highlight that. And it's great to see that a couple of our DSAC students are here too, so they know that this is important work that happens as well too. So hi to Ari and Bree for joining us. Great for them to hear that.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Buffel? I just have to comment about the new lighting. Very clean light, no flicker, just very pleasant light to be in, bathed in. So much better than the old fluorescent bulbs. I just really, really love them. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions or comments. Sorry, it's Cheryl Warrington. Trustee Warrington, go ahead.
Oh, thanks very much, Chair. Well, just one, because this often comes up, I think, with DPAC and with other areas across the province, and that's on the ventilation and all the issues around COVID. And I wonder, Barry, if you'd like to just speak to how we're doing in that regard.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Trustee Palillo for his comments. They're always appreciated. And of course, Trustee Thompson as well. Trustee Warrington, the ventilation and COVID requirements, as you know, we're trying to improve ventilation. And one of the ways that we do that is by opening dampers for our ventilation systems and being able to actively say that we're meeting the requirements and trying to, utilize the equipment to the best of its ability. And by, replacement of some of the, things like the furnaces, the boiler systems, the ventilations that we did, the 8 ventilators at Van Bian just this summer, those types of things enable us to do more. In the past, I think we would have less ventilation and less meeting of temperature requirements as well. So I'm really happy to say that I think that we are meeting the mark, and that when we do see a problem, we're able to respond to it and take a look at the systems and then adjust the controls that make it work better.
Thank you very much. That's a very important information to share. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments so far for Mr. Beppel? All right, Mr. Beppel, you can continue with your report.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to talk about our energy contracts and the rates that we pay for the energy that we purchase abroad. So the first unfortunate bad news, and it goes in line with comments that were just made about ventilation rates and COVID, energy use has increased dramatically due to those ventilation requirements for the district. Ventilation systems are running a minimum of 12 hours a day, 5 days per week. That's a bit more than what we typically run their ventilation fans for, but not a whole lot. It's just that the minimum outdoor air ventilation is now based on a percentage of air that we can make available, which is influenced by the outside air temperature and the type of heating system in use. So of course we want to maintain the temperature so we're all not wearing coats in the classrooms. And that means we have to adjust the system so that they can provide the heat that we need, as well as provide as much fresh air as we possibly can bring into the space. That temperature is talking about is a deciding factor. And December saw a 65% increase over what we call the heating degree days from the previous December. So we knew that December was cold, but it was colder by a lot. The gas consumption increased accordingly. As an example, PGSS saw a 115% increase in gas consumption year over year. That's comparing the December period to the previous year's December period. Electricity use also rose as we utilize more fan energy to heat the buildings and bring in that ventilation for the spaces. I did get some new data that I'll share now. The natural gas bill for December was $109,000 more than the previous December. That's significant. Electricity was $54,000 more than the previous month. Those are very high numbers. I'm happy to see that at least February, we're starting to see a recovery in the period. And I'm hoping that we have enough budget benefit leftover budget to be able to absorb some of these increases. So we'll be watching that very closely. One of the things that we can do is we can try and do the best we can with pricing to help the budget. And so what we do is for our yearly gas contract for 14 rate, what we call 23 schools. And those are our largest consumers of natural gas, was renewed with Shell North America on November the 1st. This is a yearly contract, and that's to take advantage of what we call the index pricing. And that's through a pipeline through West Coast Station 2 in Chetwynd. And so what I've done is I've taken a table of consumption and price per gigajoules, and what you can see in the table is that our price per gigajoule varied from a very low consumption of 139 gigajoules at $3.18 up to the high in November, which was $4.44 a gigajoule. And we consumed 5,253 gigajoules. And then of course you can see in December where we started spiking and the cold weather hit the worst and we burned through 8,617 gigajoules of energy. Fortunately, the price on the spot index was a little bit less at $4.17. So we saw a wide variety of prices. October varied from 20 cents a gigajoule to $5.42. All this said was the markets were extremely uncertain. They didn't know which way to go. It was very, very volatile. And it settled at a rate less than other months with an average of 269, while Fortisbc rates were at 384. The main advantage that we have with Shell is that buying through Shell, we have a lower rate on the transportation and storage costs, okay? But we can only switch back and forth once a year. So how are we doing? For July 2020 to the June 2021 budget year, that was last year, we saved $23,000 buying gas from Shell rather than Fortisbc on those 14, actually at that time it was 15 schools because we had the old Kelly Road secondary building on the contract. For this year, I compared from July 2021 to December 2021. So I don't have a full year yet, but so far we saved $15,000, even with the rates that you see in the table above. The transportation rates that Fortisbc charge, are quite considerable. We still pay for the delivery like every homeowner does to each of our facilities. So we have some fixed costs from Fortis and we have a variable cost from Shell. And by doing the variable cost and getting the transportation through Shell, we see a benefit. Okay. Fortisbc supplies all our rate 2 and a couple of the rate 3 schools because those were, say, Central Fort George. We didn't know if we were going to close that building and be able to sell it, so we kept it on a rate 3. We have supply and of the gas and the delivery. So October 1st, 2021, you can see the increase that they had through the BC Utilities Commission from 284 to 384, and that was $1 per gigajoule. And then further increase hit us January 1st to a natural gas increase to $4.50 a gigajoule. And unfortunately, you can see the percentage of the increases for delivery and storage, and the cost of the gas itself rose 35.9% for rate 2 schools, 36.27 for rate 3 schools, but we only have a few of those since October 2020 in a 15-month period. And then, of course, taxes are compounded on that. The carbon tax is not, that has remained stable at $2.31 per gigajoule. But the tax implications, because they're compounded, relate to a cost of over $10 a gigajoule that we're paying for natural gas. Propane. So CanGas Propane purchased a number of distributors in BC a few years ago and is our principal supplier of propane. Yearly prices are contracted at a fixed rate based on 300,000 liters of propane that we consume at all of our facilities. And the rates for 21-22 were signed at 47 cents a liter, taxes extra, and that was a 17% increase from previous rate. Large portion of that actual cost is in the transportation of the fuel by school or to the school by trucking. So that's the bad news is I've been reporting for a while that we've been seeing energy prices spiking and increasing throughout. And so the LED lights and panels, the high efficiency boilers that we're putting in, the geothermal project at Shasta Kelly Road Secondary, these are what's offsetting the costs to the district so that we're trying to stay focused on the budget and not increasing it. But the buffer that we have in the budget will not be able to support these kinds of increases year over year without some sort of supplementary, cost to us for that. So We're coming up to budget discussions again, and we're going to have to pay attention to this one, unfortunately. We'll see how things roll out in the next few weeks with the price of energy over the spring and coming up into the fall. So I think everybody here needs some good news. I want to talk about incentive and rebates. We received the Fortisbc commercial product heater rebates for all those tankless water heaters at Morphe and Van Bien for $2,000. And we received a piping rebate at various school sites for $21,500. We did submit the applications to the boiler incentive rebates for both Van Bien Elementary and Morphe Elementary. Those were the two sites on Fortis's accounts. That's where we received the rebates from. Mcbride, Centennial, and Valemount Secondary are through CanGas, so we don't get the rebate applications for those two sites. I did receive the Van Bien incentives, but I want to put that on my next report so that we actually have some more good news. And the applications for furnace installations at College Heights, Hickson, John McGinnis were all submitted to Fortisbc. We also have pipe insulation at Van Bien and Morphe. They were both submitted to Fortis as well. And electrical rebates for the BC Hydro's lighting upgrades for Hard Highlands, Heritage, and Harwin and Mcbride Centennial were all submitted. And in fact, those have been declared in a number of cases. Hard Highlands I've declared, Heritage I've declared, and I will be declaring Mcbride Centennial, shortly. And so those incentive rebates will be coming from BC Hydro this spring. And that completes the report. Any kind of questions that you have on, of course, the cost of energy or the rebates, I'm happy to answer them.
Trustee Becker.
It's my turn to give bouquets, Mr. Beppel. I think it's amazing the juggling you do and how you manipulate going from, say, Shell to Fortis to get us the best deal. I think we certainly are going to struggle probably with the budget, but I think huge thank you to you for the very best that you could do to get us through this winter and through COVID with the ventilators and the increased cost of gas. You're amazing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee Palillo.
Yeah, just, and forgive me, I don't know, but what facilities would be on propane in the district?
Trustee Palillo, so the propane schools are Giscombe Elementary. Then we have the Robson Valley, we have Mcbride Centennial and Mcbride Secondary, and then of course Valemount Elementary and Valemount Secondary. And then we have a couple of smaller tanks for some of our portables. So that pretty much covers it.
Yeah, I suspected it would be our smaller rural schools, but I just wanted to ask for sure. I was just, I was thinking about Trustee Beckering's comments, and if we weren't doing what we were doing to save energy and the greening projects, much more of a hit that would be on the budget with with costs. And it's something that not only this district, but across the province, and we personally are all seeing as well. So I don't know about you guys, but my gas bill last month was outrageous. So yeah, it is a real challenge. So we're going to have to monitor that very closely. But I just think of really how important the work that we are doing with the greening and those, like you mentioned, the geothermal heating at the new Shastee Kelly Road, how much more important that is with costs skyrocketing as they are.
Thank you.
Trustee Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I echo all of what Trustee Beckering and Trustee Palillo have said. You've done an amazing job, the maintenance, and Brett and your crew. You do an amazing job. And basically, these costs are covered, are they not, from our annual facility grant?
Trustee Warrington, yes. The cost of the major upgrades for the boiler applications are covered at both AFG funding and school enhancement program, as well as carbon neutral capital program from the Ministry of Education. So they cover the most expensive programs. The lighting upgrades, 3 of them were covered within some of the same type of envelope, and 3 of the other ones were covered under what we call the green funding, or the rebates that are coming back, and some of the leftover money that's in the utility budget that's rolled over. This year we might have to go the other way, unfortunately.
So I don't know, the board in the past made a commitment to use money that was saved in the energy budget to carry on some of these. So we have continued year over year to repurpose those surplus dollars to Barry's program, where we do some of these energy conservation things.
Right.
But Barry's right, it is getting smaller and smaller every year.
Yes, and I think that that's a point that as we move into the budget discussions and forward to the province, we need to think very carefully about those dollars we receive, and how we're very dependent, like, on all of the incentives as well. By the sounds of it, Barry, there's a lot that you have to do to gather those incentives dollars so that we can move those dollars around and pay for those additional costs. So I applaud your work, as Trustee Beckering has said. It's a lot of juggling and a lot of good work. I'm not sure that the public is aware of how much goes on in our maintenance department to make the difference, to save those dollars and to keep our schools so efficient. And my hat's off to you. I'm sure we're going to do some good discussion, have good discussions during budget discussion around how we can support maintenance and the work you're doing.
Thank you.